academic essay structure. Every academic essay has basically the same structure. We begin with the context, proceed to the problem, and conclude with our solution. Every discipline has its own jargon and its own objectives, so you should pay attention to those expectations in class. You should also know that each discipline modifies this structure differently. A social sciences paper, for example, might begin with a review of literature, proceed to its methodology, provide those results, and then make conclusions about those results. So let's take a look at this structure and overview. We begin with our thesis question. Every good thesis answers a good question. We should be trying to answer a question to which the answer is not obvious. We're hoping to discover new knowledge for ourselves, and the essay is about teaching others what we have learned. To do so, there are all sorts of questions that we can ask, including gender, class, formalist, and historical questions. I might ask, for example, how does the formal structure of my favorite pop song contribute to gender inequality? The first thing any essay will do is to introduce our new knowledge. To do that, we'll be recreating our essay in microcosm. Think of a funnel and the way it begins broadly and narrows its focus to a point. We begin with a context. For example, changing television habits of teenagers in central Pennsylvania. Notice that I didn't begin with technology. That's much too broad a topic. We narrow that down to a much more specific topic. This is similar to stating a problem. With my television example, perhaps I want to take a look at the effects of viewing habits on bullying. Lastly, I state my thesis. Always remember that a thesis is a topic plus a claim. Perhaps I think that the overabundance of television and internet viewing choices have allowed teenagers to isolate themselves from diversity, leading to greater instances of bullying. That's a claim. That a specific concrete change, the diversity of choice, has led to a specific result, less tolerance of diversity. The first body section of our essay, then, whether a single paragraph or a group of paragraphs, depending on the complexity of our analysis, is the provision of context. We need to get our audience on the same page as us. Think of it as setting the ground rules. A first date, for example, is a context, and social pressures will let us know when we've strayed too far from what's appropriate on a first date. Similarly, in an essay, we provide the context so that we can get everyone thinking about the same ideas that we're thinking about. In sociology and psychology, this will likely mean a review of literature. A review of literature lets the audience know which set of ideas we're discussing. There's an ongoing conversation about our ideas, and we want to show this conversation and to map out how our idea will fit into that. In my literature essays, I might begin with a general summation of philosophical or critical approach I'm going to use. If I'm using Foucault to analyze the work of Virginia Woolf, I'd here give the general background of the ideas of Woolf's literature I'm going to be looking at when I apply my methodology, Foucault's system. In other essays, perhaps we just need to define the problem. If we're writing about obesity, for example, we need to define the problem of obesity, what it is, and the general causes we'll be looking at. Remember, the context provides the focus. Essays on immigration from Mexico need a strong focus. Most of the time, we hear about the effects of this immigration on the American people. Perhaps our context wants us to help answer a question regarding drug cartels as a cause of immigration. Our essay would then begin with explaining cartels in paragraph 1, then move on to economic effects of the cartels in paragraph 2, and wrap up with psychological impact of cartels on Mexican citizens in paragraph 3, concluding our context section. Remember, be patient in your development. Offer concrete evidence for every claim, and every claim gets one paragraph. Next, we move on to our problem. Social science essays will probably now discuss the methodology and the results of that methodology. A humanities essay will move on to the analysis of text. History essays will discuss primary sources such as letters or official documents, and literature essays will begin an interpretation of the text. In my earlier Virginia Woolf example, the philosophy of Foucault is my methodology, so I would here review that method and begin to interpret Woolf's text according to his philosophy. Methods can vary greatly. Perhaps your personal history essay involved interviews with your parents and grandparents. A social science paper might use a survey, such as the market research survey from Banana Republic shown here. A scientific paper would explain its experiment and the results of that experiment, how they ran a drug trial, at what doses, and how the control group reacted, and how the test group reacted, for example. Finally, we reveal our solution, or, in other words, our conclusions. This could be an actual solution to a social problem taking several paragraphs. It could be an interpretation of data and psychological profiles. It could be a merger proposal after a long discussion of the business assets of two companies. In the case of literary analysis, it will likely just be the concluding paragraph, as the problem part of our essay would then be the longest. Remember, different disciplines focus on different things, so how much time is given to each section and the purpose of each section could be different. The basic structure, however, remains the same. We begin with our introduction, which states our thesis. The body then develops that thesis. The body will contain some version of this progression from context to specific problem to the solution of that problem. A thesis asked a question: how does my favorite pop song contribute to gender inequality? Showing how it does is my solution to the problem. My conclusion would answer why that is important. In other words, our concluding paragraph will always broaden our specific topic again, attaching our conclusions to the context with which we began. My essay on Wonder Woman, for example, begins with a context: gender division. Its topic, Wonder Woman's approach to gender division. The thesis question was, how does Wonder Woman challenge gender divisions? When I conclude my essay, I show how my analysis addresses gender divisions in general, so that people interested in the topic can think about what I've written in regards to their favorite television show, to representation in Congress, and to our personal relationships.